Good Friday. Good Friday. Cast in Court is now in session, and here we go for the good lesson. It is Miss Public Info here with today's Cast in Court show, and boy, oh boy, do we have a show for you today. There's a lot going on in the Diddy trial. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to go over. Today, the jury returned after a brief hiatus on the Diddy trial. We learned some things, we saw some things, and we're going to talk about it today. Today, the drug mule, Diddy's drug mule, Brendan Paul, the young kid coming from the Syracuse University basketball team. He's the basketball star. The kid who was so talented at basketball, all to become Diddy's drug mule. He testified today. He did not stay on the stand very long. I think he was on the stand a lot shorter of a time than people thought. I, for one, thought he would be on the stand a lot longer, but he was not. I'm going to look down a little bit because I have my notes here. So I'm going to be looking away, looking down. I'm going to be writing some things, just sort of reminding myself of some things, but let's get into it. So as always, Miss Public Info is going to give you the facts. I'm not going to give you a whole lot of, opinion, but I'm definitely going to give you the facts, give you the lesson, give you the quick and dirty of all of this legalese and what's happening in the courtroom, and there is a lot. But first, before we get into the Brendan Paul situation, we need to talk about this Juror 6 situation. We're still talking about Juror 6. Juror 6, as you know, I did a whole video, a whole episode on Juror 6 and why that juror was dismissed. So the Juror 6 situation is still a thing because Gov't Submarinian is still really upset that the Juror 6 conversation was even leaked into the press. And of course, who leaked it, or we don't know, but who did the story, it was TMZ. So what you need to understand is that, and this is not conspiratorial, these are facts. TMZ is the one that broke the story about Juror 6. They are the ones that sort of gave everyone the information about Juror 6, and they're the ones that also gave the information about the alternate that replaced Juror 6. And this is what Judge Submarinian is really upset about. He's upset about the fact that that particular information got leaked. And we need to remember that the Combs team has been really positioning themselves and utilizing strategy to try and ignite a mistrial. And things with the jury, messing around with the jury, is a great way to ignite a mistrial. So this particular situation that's going on right now and the actual Juror 6 being dismissed is not a mistrial qualifier, because as Judge Submarinian put it, it was not something that was known to the government, nor was it known to the defense. This is his address, whereabouts, was something that he was keeping to himself, and he happened to be getting into a casual conversation with someone else on the jury and was being overheard by court staff in the robing room. And that's how the information became known to the court. So that in itself does not make or qualify for a mistrial. If it were a situation where he was being dismissed under suspicious grounds such as discrimination, which is the argument that Sean Combs' side made, which didn't hold a lot of water, then they may have some grounds for a mistrial, but there weren't any grounds for a mistrial. This whole thing with the Juror 7, they're calling him Juror 7, or this person Juror 7, only because 7 follows 6, right? So it's just very convenient. But that isn't really his juror number. It's random. But this particular juror, the TMZ broke this story, like, the day after, or this, or the same day juror 6 was dismissed, or maybe even the day before, but somewhere within that time frame, they broke the story about this alternate and who he was, that he was a white middle-aged man from Westchester, New York, and that he was an architect. And this was a huge deal to Judge Submaranian, and I completely understand why. Because why? First of all, the juror 7 situation, which would be the alternate to the juror that was dismissed, all of that was under seal. So when something is under seal, that simply means that no one in the public gallery nor the press was in the courtroom at the time that the court was hearing information or speaking about information regarding juror 7, the alternate. All of the conversation regarding the alternate juror was done outside of the presence of the press, outside of the presence of the public, and outside of the presence of the jury actually. So the only people in that courtroom at that time would be the defense, the government, and all of their people that work with them, and then of course the judge and his court staff, and of course the defendant is there. So here's where things get weird. So TMZ, they're the ones that broke the story. Tenny Geragos, who is the daughter of Mark Geragos, who is a very famous celebrity attorney, she is one of the lead defense attorneys for Sean Combs. Well, Mark Geragos, her father, is often in the courtroom. I don't know if he was in the courtroom the day all of this went down. I'm not sure. But I know that he has been in the courtroom during the time this trial has happened. So he could have been in the courtroom. However, Mark Geragos does a podcast with Harvey Levin, who is the owner, proprietor, lead anchor person for TMZ, on a daily. Like, he's always on TMZ's podcast, and he utilizes the podcast to talk about the trial, and he utilizes the podcast to give biased opinions about the trial. These are facts, because I've listened to this podcast. I've looked at a lot of the comments coming out of the TMZ Instagram accounts and their social accounts and all of that, and it's very pro Diddy, and it's because of Mark Geragos' connection to the Diddy case, to his daughter Tenny Geragos being the lead defense attorney for the Diddy case. So I think that Judge Submaranian is very annoyed by all of this. He has threatened, and I think he's going to make good on it. He has threatened that if this continues to happen, he is going to seize every single lawyer's cell phone. He is going to search every single lawyer's cell phone. And he said he's not having it. He's not having it. He has been very clear on that. So this actually happened last week when he said, I'm not having it. You have been warned. You will also face potential criminal charges because this is obstruction of justice. Really, it is. You can't do that. So that happens. I'm thinking this is over with. You know what I mean? Like, this is kind of over with. Are we just going to just, get through this and go on about our lives? The answer is no. Judge Submaranian is still on, as we like to say in the slang world, he's still on his talk can about this. Like, he is really upset about this because it is actually affecting the integrity of the case. So in the legal world, and this is why we have rules of pretrial publicity. When I was a public information officer at the DA's office, I used to tell members of the press all the time. I used to say to them, listen guys, I'm here to help. I like to help and I like to do favors, but I will not do anything that disrupts the integrity of the case. And these are the reasons why we have rules of pretrial publicity. These are the reasons why we have rules put into place. You can't just do what you want because you want a story, or a lawyer potentially in this situation wants to utilize a media outlet to strategically help create some sort of mistrial situation, which is what I am thinking is happening. Is trying to happen, is what they're trying to get at. I'm not quite sure, because the timing is awfully suspicious, where you have the government getting ready to rest, and they may have rested. I'm actually reading through the transcript. We're gonna go through the transcript together, and they may have actually rested today, and so we're looking at a situation where the defense is getting ready to put on their case. My understanding is that the defense has 3 witnesses. They have 3 witnesses. We need to remember something about these kinds of cases, is that the burden of proof is on the prosecution. It's on the Department of Justice. It is not on the defense. They do not have the burden of proof. Truthfully, the defense doesn't have to put on 1 witness if they don't want. Their job is to create doubt within the jury's mind. So that's all they need to do. So part of what's happening right now is trying to also affect the court of public opinion. Because here's the rub. If they do somehow get a mistrial, whoever that future jury is, they're out there right now. They're out there listening to what's happening. They're out there being affected by everything they hear in the press, by the court of public opinion. And that is the strategy, in part, that the defense is using right now with this whole TMZ business. That's what I'm getting from this. So listen, it's kind of like, so listen guys, part of the strategy is, if we can get a mistrial, we're affecting the court of public opinion. The future jury is out there. We're creating doubt right now, you know. But if we don't get a mistrial, it's not that they're up a creek, but they are sort of buying themselves some time with all of these sorts of little distractions and disruptions and things of that nature. So it's all very distracting, and I think Judge Submaranian is extremely annoyed by it. It's what I really think about it, and I don't think it's a good idea to annoy a judge. Like, it just really isn't a good idea to annoy a judge, especially one like Judge Submaranian. Like, I think he's very, like I was saying in a previous video, like, he's been very fair with this trial. He's been very, very patient with both sides, and this is a lot to consume as a judge. This is a lot to consume as a jury in general, but it really does not bode well for anyone, whoever in that courtroom was leaking the information. I, of course, have my own feelings about who may have done it, and this is the reason I wouldn't be a good juror, because I'm already biased, a little bit biased, but I think it's obvious that it's quite possibly the defense, because of Mark Garagos's closeness, his connection to TMZ, and they were the outlet that actually reported on the alternate's story. So, and Mark Garagos being Tenny's dad, and Tenny is the lead defense attorney for Sean Combs. So to me, all signs point to the defense being the one. And I think Judge Submaranian probably knows that, and he just can't say that, And so he's still talking about it. He's on it. So, I have some notes here about the fact that, some people in the press, I was one of the press outlets that has been really great. I mean, he's been amazing, and that's Mark Russell over at the Inner City Press. He's the one that transcribes. He's been given special permission by the court to be the transcriber for the entire trial. So everyone, all members of the press, go through his transcription. He does it on X, and he'll transcribe everything for everyone, and he's just great. One of the things that he said this morning before court was that he said that he thinks that having a seal around the Juror 7, the alternate situation, is a mistake. He said that he has been around Judge Semeranian. He says he thinks he's a great judge, and that he used to sit in back of courtrooms and observe other judges to see how they handle things in the courtroom. So he knows that he's fair and he does the right thing. He says though, but he thinks that the having a seal on this particular portion of the juror situation is a mistake, because it's leading, and quote, I'm quoting him, it's leading to a lot of speculation and conspiracy theories. So and I agree with him. I just want to say that I agree with him that it is leading to a lot of speculation and conspiratorial theories, because that's what people do. They jump to whatever conclusion that they're leaning towards. When they don't have information, they just jump to whatever conclusion they want. But my only thing to say with that is that Judge Submaranian's job as the top boss in that courtroom is to protect the integrity of that case. Is to protect every aspect of that case, so that the not only does the defendant have his day in court as he deserves, as the Constitution says he deserves, but also so that the government can get justice for the people. That's his job. His job is to oversee a fair trial. So having things unsealed and playing fast and loose here and there and everywhere is a perfect storm for a mistrial. And that is exactly what he is trying to subvert. He's trying to avoid a mistrial situation. And when you unseal things and when you are not careful, I would rather him seal up everything rather than to have things unsealed and don't know what's happening. You know what I mean? It's a mess. So that's where we are here. We had a few housekeeping items. Sean Combs' team, I guess a few days ago, they put in they docketed. So docketed is, in layman's terms, means that it was put into a public discovery docket. That they docketed an amendment to the jury instructions. So there's some back and forth going on with that. The government, of course, opposes some of it as it relates to foundational evidence, and it has to do with the intent of intoxication. And the government is just saying that they don't believe that this part of the jury instructions should be given special attention, because the intent of intoxication, whether it was she's willingly drinking this or willingly taking drugs, does not negate the fact that this person was still an actor in activities without consent. Because if you're under the influence of something, you cannot truthfully give consent because you're not within your right state of mind and being. So that was, I gave you the quick and dirty of the motion that was filed in response to the Combs motion that they filed last week. So that's how the government responded today. That's how they responded. So moving on. So we're going to go into Brendan Paul's testimony. Now let me remind the class about Brendan Paul. Brendan Paul is the kid from Syracuse. Again, he's a basketball star from Syracuse University. He's graduated and everything. On last year or last spring, when all of America watched P. Diddy get his plane raided in Miami on the tarmac, Brendan Paul was on that plane with P. Diddy. He was getting ready to take off to God knows where with P. Diddy and his family. Now, Brendan Paul, out of that situation, was the only one to be arrested. And today we find out why. Now, before going into the transcript, I can tell you that Brendan Paul was arrested because he had cocaine on him. And he was P. Diddy's drug runner. And he is a 19-year-old kid. When Brendan Paul was arrested, we didn't really hear from him. We didn't hear anything about him for like 4 or 5 weeks. And during that 4 or 5 week period is when all the other raids started to happen. P. Diddy got his homes raided in both Miami and in Beverly Hills and Los Angeles and places elsewhere. This is where P. Diddy ends up coming, back to New York, and he is arrested in the Trump Tower of all places, in the Trump Hotel, I believe. I think that's the hotel that he's arrested in. He's arrested there in New York. Now, the very interesting thing about this whole thing about Sean Combs' arrest is that Sean Combs, when he was arrested while preparing for another freak-off. It's very clear. Now that we know, last week the government, sort of laid out receipt by receipt by receipt and action by action by action, how all these things sort of lined up and how each employee contributed to the freak-off preparation and the breakdown once the freak-offs were over with. We now know, based upon everything we've heard, that when Sean Combs was arrested last spring in New York City, that he was clearly preparing for a freak-off. There was pink powder everywhere, which Brendan Paul talks about in his testimony. We'll get into it. You'll hear about it. He has, there are towels everywhere, which is apparently something P. Diddy always did. He always had towels everywhere, in white towels everywhere with the freak-offs. There was tons of baby oil everywhere, alcohol, meaning liquor. There were other drugs there, ketamine, which is this drug, the same drug actually that Matthew Perry ended up ODing over. So ketamine, so we know it's a very powerful drug. The pink powder drug is actually pink cocaine. It's cocaine. It's a new sort of, it's a new designer drug. It's pink, so it's mixed with something. We'll get into that here in the testimony here. There's Molly, there's MDMA, there's all kind of drugs on the premises. So he was, and there's cash everywhere for the escorts because they have to pay the escorts. There's women's high heels, which Jane Doe sort of describes as the part of the uniform that Sean Combs would want her to wear. So there's these 7-inch stripper shoes that are on the premises. There's a performance outfit, some sort of performance outfit. There's some photos. I'll see if I can get those added on there for you guys so you can see the photos. But there's some photos that have been made public that were part of because they're part of the discovery, so the press has access to them. So you can see exactly what they found in the hotel room upon his arrest. But the government, I'm told Mr. Combs that if he did not come back to New York, because the whole thing, and I mentioned this in another episode, the whole thing with Mr. Combs was that they were suspicious that he would be tampering with witnesses. These assistants that ended up testifying, Jane Doe herself, Cassie, who, she lives someplace on the East Coast in New York or New Jersey or something like that. So, and other people who, all these people who were part of this, they told Mr. Combs to stay away from New York. If you do not come to New York, we will not arrest you. So then, of course, Mr. Combs, because he's a billionaire, you don't tell him what to do. I'm going to do what I want to do. So the government had eyes on him. I mean, if they want to find you, they want to find you. This is the reason why I couldn't, for the longest time, understand why the government couldn't find Osama bin Laden. I said, okay, so Osama bin Laden must really be in somebody's mountainside, because I know for a fact when the government wants to find you, they find you. And they did with Mr. Combs. When no sooner than he landed in New York, and he understood that when he got to New York, that it was a very good chance that he was going to be arrested. He knew that. He knew that was gonna, a possibility that was gonna be it, And so, of course, they ended up hooking him up. And that's why, for the life of me, I could not understand why he and other people in the world as well, why no one, the Sean Combs hardcore fans, I understand, but why no one could understand why the government recommended no bond. Because he could not follow instructions when he was not even apprehended, when they gave him a chance. And then when he was in the jail, in the holding where he is now, but when he was first there, he was already running scams. Like, he was, I get it. Like, people are probably saying, you guys are probably saying, well, everyone and this particular Fed detention runs that phone scam where they utilize other guys' numbers to call out to other people. Yeah, but do other guys, when they call out to other people, use that phone scam to threaten other people, to threaten potential witnesses? No, they don't. And that's what Mr. Combs was doing when he first got into that detention center. So for everyone who just is like, continues to like, well, I want everyone to understand the severity. And there are some people who just never will understand the severity of all of this. Like, your opinions on the case itself, I don't want to get into that, because I'm here for the facts of what goes on in the courtroom and what goes on as it relates to the anatomy of the case. But it's very, you have to understand why why the government would not recommend bond for someone who is doing things like this. And also, you have to understand why a judge would not be swayed by the defense saying, oh, well, he'll stay in a hotel and he won't have access to phones, and it'll just be him and his family, and he won't be have access to any women. What do you mean? Like, his family's gonna bring women around. What are you talking about? Oh, he won't have access to anyone. Like, come on, guys. Like, this isn't our first day at the playground. We know what's happening. So there's no way that the judge was going to approve this. This is the reason the judge did not approve a $58 million bond package, because they understood and understand that Mr. Combs is very manipulative in terms of getting what he wanted, in terms of doing and moving the way he wants to move. So I'm bringing all of this up to sort of set the scene for this testimony today, but also to round out what I was sort of talking about as it relates to the juror situation, and how even behind the scenes and even in this moment of trial, there's still this sort of wave of manipulation being played. It's a very sort of weird sort of mood going on, and I think it's not flying very well. So we're gonna really get a chance to see what the defense brings to the table. They've adjourned for the day already. I like to do my episodes after they've adjourned for the day, so I can fully like talk to you about about the day, and give you the fullness of the transcript. And I didn't start this show until after the melee with Kanye West and him showing up. But I was told that he is now on the list. Kanye West is now on the friends and family list, so he will no longer be in the overflow room. So that one day that he did show up in the white constructed jean outfit set, he was sent over to the overflow room. And when we have big cases like this in these big trial courts, sometimes the public information officer, whoever the public information officer is for that particular judicial area, they probably set up this overflow room because they knew that they were going to have a lot of interested public. So when you want to, just so you know, like if you're ever interested in a case and it's of note and you want to get there, what you have to do is you have to get there early. You have to get online early. You have to get in line early so you can be there when the courthouse opens. And then you have to wait there. And then the press, you'll probably see two lines, a public line, and then there's a line for the press. The press has their own line, and then the press goes in their line, and then the press usually have like a little room in the courthouse that's set up by the public information officer, and they usually sort of triage and take care of like all of their particular needs as it relates to like having like stations where they can like set up things, their computers and plugs and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, as it relates to the public, when there is a big case like this and a case of note, it's usually a situation where you have multiple overflow rooms. And to my knowledge, with this particular case, I think they have a huge overflow room. And so when Kanye West showed up that day unannounced, nobody told Unc he needed to be on the friends and family list. You just can't walk in. You're not going to have your Perry Mason moment, Kanye. Sorry. He was ushered over to the overflow room. And my understanding is that he was none too happy about being in the overflow room because, of course, Kanye is not a commoner. I'm no commoner. Y'all need to get it together. I am not a commoner, okay? So, so he left after about 30 minutes and just went on his way. But then a few days ago, I found out that he has now made it to the friends and family list. He is now going to be able to arrive whenever he's ready to arrive and be able to come into the courtroom and sit with the Combs family. So usually the Combs family, who's there usually? So usually mainstays with the Combs family, it's usually the mother, Janice, Justin, Quincy, and Christian. Those are sort of like the core group. And then there's a family friend, or I think Combs has like a family friend or a best friend. I can't remember his name. Some of you probably know it and are shouting it at me right now. Leave it in the comments so I know from now on that he's there. And then togglers are the girls. The girls, they were there, I think, the first few days of trial. And then when it started to get a little just rowdy, especially as it related to Cassie Ventura's testimony and getting really graphic, I was told that they actually left the courtroom at one point when the details were getting really graphic and salacious. And, I really feel bad for these young ladies because their mother is gone. This is their father. This is their only parent. They are 18 now, which is, good. But as most of us know, having been 18 out, and those of us who are parents, I am not, but those of us who are parents, we understand that our children are still not really adulting at 18. So, they're very much still growing, and they very much still need parental guidance. And so it's really, difficult thing to sort of be wrapped up in at this point, and hearing so many negative things about their father, especially as it relates to their mother. There's a lot of, rumors and conspiracy theories and things of that nature going on. So yes, I can see why they're not there a lot of the time. Sean Combs has I think she's around 1 year old. 1 year old. She has a 1 year old with another woman. And this woman is sometimes shows, I think she was there a few weeks ago. I'm not sure if she's there now, but she's also someone that shows up. And I think the baby's name is Love. So yes, her mother shows sometimes. Justin's mother, Misa Hilton, she has been there. I think she was there the first couple of weeks. And I think that's around it outside of, Kanye. So that's sort of what the family sort of dynamic, who's there, who's been attending, looks like. And now that Kanye is rounding things out, he's saying, well, I am Diddy. He's been, quoted as saying that, I am Diddy, Diddy is me. He said we both, I'm quoting him, so these are facts, ladies and gentlemen. He said we both hit women. No, your computer screen did not glitch, and it did not somehow go on mute. I am pausing for drama. He said we both hit women, as though this is something to be proud of. It really is not. This is ridiculous. Whether you thought that tape at the Intercontinental Hotel was domestic violence or not, that is not something that should be utilized as a badge of honor, especially by someone who's supposed to be showing up as your support system or as your brother. I'm Sean Combs. We're the same. We both hit women. Now, I don't think that Kanye West has ever been charged with domestic violence, but he's let us know that he is a domestic abuser. This is unconscionable. I just can't. I am flabbergasted at everything that I'm hearing with this case and mind blown by all of it. I'm just like, Jesus, take the wheel. Seriously. I mean, I just really, and I don't, use those words a lot, in a funny way ever, because I am a believer. And so I don't, as a Christian, I don't do the whole, being funny with the Lord sort of thing. But it's just crazy to me. I'm like, really? Are we really doing this? Like, this is not something to be bragging about. Saying, I'm here to support my friend, which I think he also said, but as we know, he always says too much, and he should have just left it at that. Like, I'm here to support my friend. I want to, support him and leave it at that. I mean, it's just a lot. I just cannot. I cannot. That is just too much for me. Okay, we're going to get into this. Of course, you all know that Fat Joe, I'm just sort of like segueing just a small bit. Fat Joe, who is a rapper, part of the Terror Squad, was also hit with a very interesting lawsuit by one of the guys from the Terror Squad. He was his hype man. They've been going back and forth. I may get into that a little bit, but I may not, because Fat Joe actually hit him with a lawsuit a few weeks ago. And so it's hard to really sort of get into this sort of mudslinging match. I just kind of want to see where things go. The both lawsuits are extremely inflammatory. They accuse one another of having relations with underage girls, getting underage girls cosmetic procedures. Obviously, it involves drugs. It involves, sex trafficking. It involves, stealing wages, not paying people, so forced labor, all those things. Very remnant of the Little Rod lawsuit that sparked the Sean Combs case, basically. So it's something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. So if you don't hear me talking about it, it's not because I don't know about it or I'm not like thinking about it or I'm ignoring it. It's just that this seems very much like just a mudslinging match, and I'm not sure I want to get into it because it might just fizzle out. I'm not sure how deep I want to get into that, but it does come at a very interesting time, and I think that what we're going to see a onslaught of lawsuits coming up, I think, because I think people in the industry are becoming a lot bolder. Sean Combs is a big fish, and for a big fish like him to go down opens up the floodgates, if you will, for other people to start being honest and to stop being scared about telling their truth. So let's get into the Brendan Paul, and I'm looking on my phone at the transcript, so that's what you'll see me looking at. So the government calls him, and they ask him if he recognizes the person in the photo. They show him a photo of Sean Combs. He says yes. He says, I worked for him until he was arrested at the Florida airport for possession of cocaine and his personal assistant bag. They asked him why he was there, and he says that he was sweeping Mr. Combs' room. And he said, they asked, well, how did you come to work for Mr. Combs? And he says, through Revolt. And he names Ellie Marone. And he says, Ellie told me, get in to get out. if you have a girlfriend, break up with her. You will never see her. So the government asks, did you interview? Late October in 2022 at 200 South Mapleton Drive. So 200 South Mapleton Drive is a main point address in this case. The 200 South Mapleton Drive address is the address here in Los Angeles. This is the Beverly Hills address. This is the address where you saw on the news where the Combs boys were outside and they were the Homeland Security was basically sweeping that property. They were searching that property. That's the 200 Mapleton address. It's also the address where Cassie and her testimony talks about a lot of these activities where she was being beaten and all of that was going on. So there's a lot going on at the South Mapleton Drive address. It is sort of like the main hub or headquarters for all of this. Okay, so then you go on and the government says, how were you greeted there? And he says, my ID was scanned and I had to sign a non-disclosure. And that's important because all of the other assistants have said that the NDAs that were signed were basically the reason why they did not tell anybody about what was going on. They thought because they had an NDA that they couldn't tell people that these horrendous things were going on, were happening. He says he had to sign a NDA, and then he says Frankie Santella and Christina Coram, KK, who is Sean Combs' right hand, who everyone in the world thought that the government was going to call as a witness. She never got called as a witness, so I believe, this is my personal belief, I believe that after the Combs case is through, I believe that KK is going to be prosecuted. Whether she will be indicted, I think that's what will happen. I think she's going to be indicted. I think that KK is the next one up to be indicted. I think she is a co-conspirator. I think right now she is an unindicted co-conspirator because she is his right hand. She is basically like Diddy's Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman who was the right hand to Jeffrey Epstein. This is who KK is. She is the woman who you may have seen in photos when Combs is like days away from being arrested and he's in Miami, and she's this dark-haired, sort of lighter-toned woman. She's Iranian, I believe, and she's sitting with him. That's KK. And she's named in a slew of civil lawsuits as a participant in many of these attacks that Sean Combs has committed. She's also involved and mentioned in all of the receipts that the government laid out for the RICO case that they basically wrapped up in a bow last week. So she is involved. So that's KK. Did they hire you? The government asked. Yes. I would pack a lot of joints in the garage. Marijuana. The government. When did you meet Combs? He says, KK came to the garage and told me to come to a listening party in the backyard and take notes. What was KK's role? Chief of staff, helped out with the family. So she's his right hand. Did KK use Combs' phone? Yes. How many assistants did Combs have? At first 5, then 4, then 2. Given my college basketball experience and background, I helped Mr. Combs with his workouts. Who is this? They show him a photo. And he says, Jonathan Perez. and this, and he says this is Butler Frank Rodriguez. What did Mr. Combs's butler do? He says he stand next to Puff, giving him water, chapstick, or whatever he needed. Did you have group chats with KK? Yes. Turn to the binder and flip through it. So they hand him a binder. Who is this? Fahim. We call him Fa. F-A-H. Fa. What was your salary? I started at $75,000 and then increased to $100,000. I got paid bi-weekly by Combs Enterprises. Remember this. He was paid by Combs Enterprises. The fact that he was paid by Combs Enterprises, and the fact that he was the drug mule, and the fact that when you'll find out that he was paying drug dealers, makes this part of the RICO case. They're laying out further the RICO. That's what this is. He goes on. They go on. Where did you live? He says, I lived in an Airbnb in Los Angeles and Miami. Where did KK live? In LA, an apartment 4 minutes from 200 South Mapleton. In Miami, in Two Star Island. So Two Star Island is Combs's residence. KK lives at that residence. And what we find out in weeks past, we find out that many other assistants, if you're an assistant for Combs, meant you live there. You live on Two Star Island. All the assistants live there, including the security as well. So everyone lives there. It's like a compound. Okay. Where did KK? Oh, so we went through that. I'm sorry. Okay. The government. Did you accompany Mr. Combs to pay club appearances? And he says yes. He would ask for $150,000, and they'd have to sell things for him. So I'm assuming they're talking about at the time Combs had the Ciroc, Diego, the Diego brand, the Diego deal with Ciroc, basically, or the Ciroc deal with Diego. Excuse me. Government. What did you do to stay awake? Prescription Adderall, and sometimes I did cocaine. What was your job? To make sure Mr. Combs was always happy. He'd say, I don't take no for an answer. He told us to move like SEAL Team 6. Stick a pin there. That's part of the RICO. Part of the elements of RICO is that everyone who works in a criminal enterprise does the job to make the head guy happy. So this is the head guy. This is KK. These are the underlings. And everybody does what they do to make the head guy happy. Drugs, freak offs, procuring the drugs, procuring materials for the freak offs, bribing people, hanging people out of windows, shooting people, all that. And that's what he's just laid out with this one sentence. He says, they ask him what his job was, and he says, to make sure Mr. Combs was happy. He'd say, I don't take no for an answer. He told us to move like SEAL Team 6. Did Mr. Combs fire you? Yes, for forgetting his Lululemon fanny pack when he went on a walk. He said, I don't want to see your face anymore. Tell KK you are fired. What did you do then? I bought a Lululemon fanny pack, get it in, and laid low. Did you ever complain to Human Resources? No, that wasn't a thing. Well, why not? Human Resources even forgot to pull my federal taxes my first 8 months. I'm sure the feds was happy to hear that. Hi, guys, over at the IRS. Here you go. You just go to Mr. Combs, he says. The government. Did Mr. Combs use drugs? Brendan. Yes. Ecstasy, cocaine, and more. What is in this photo? My hand. with ecstasy and 2C, pink cocaine. Yes, that is what the pink cocaine is called now. It's a designer version of cocaine. It's pink and it's called 2C. Yes. What did you take? Why did you take the photo? To ask staff what to do with it after I found it. I was told to put it in this bag. Did you ever buy marijuana for him? Yes. From whom? Brendan. Philip Pines. Puff liked Sunset Sherbert. So Philip Pines is a drug dealer. Who were the other drug dealers Mr. Combs used? One Stop, Guido, Baby Girl, and I think it's spelled OEI. Who's this? Guido. I guess she's showing him a photo. Guido. Funny smile on face and photo. Is this your chat with Baby Girl? What is happening? Brendan. Well, Jonathan Perez is introducing me to Baby Girl. She asked me, is it for you or for Puff? I replied, Puff, but don't tell anyone. Tell anyone it's for me. So basically, he's putting his own neck out and saying, these drugs are for me, but they're really for Puff. And basically, that means like if he gets caught doing this transaction, then only he would get in trouble, and then, Sean Combs wouldn't be connected to it in any kind of way. These are the lengths. I continue to be stupefied by the lengths that Sean Combs went through to protect himself, but to risk other people's life, their livelihoods, their self-agency, all of that. And then also, this is a 19-year-old kid, but at 19, I understood when people were taking advantage of me. And I just wonder, and I know Brendan Paul is like a white kid from upstate New York. He really wants to make it in the, music industry or whatever. He's like, around people he's probably never been around before. And I think he comes from a little, a little bit of money himself, his parents or whatnot. And so he's a fish out of water is my point. This is the point I'm trying to make. So you go from Syracuse University basketball, graduating, you've been in college, you're a good kid, a good home life, you've been afforded all these things in education. You've been able to, live a very sort of charmed life that other people haven't had the opportunity to live. And you get out of school and then you become a drug mule. It sounds like a National Lampoon, script, really. This is just, I'm like, how does this even happen? But it happened because this is what he was willing to risk to be in the entertainment industry. And it's the desperation of wanting to be around people or wanting to be in an industry that seems exciting and wanting to be the people that he's working for, or these people are working for, that gets all of these people, all of these potential co-conspirators, all of these people who are under immunity testifying, caught up in a dragnet. All of them. This is what gets them caught up in a dragnet. My mom always told me growing up, it's a great adage. My mom always told me growing up, never be desperate for anything, because desperation will take you places you don't want to go. And I have lived to learn that it is true. When you are desperate for something, I don't care what it is in life. When you are desperate for something, you are going to make moves that are going to set you back so far that you may never get back where you once were. You may never recover, actually. And these kids, because a lot of them are just kids. He's one of them that's a kid. Almost didn't make it back. They very easily could have just gone to prison for decades. The amount of drugs that he was caught with, it wasn't like it was like you know, a key or anything, but he still was caught with cocaine, pure, and he could have easily went to prison for like 15 years, easily. But instead, they, as you'll find out in his testimony when I get to it, he went with, he got a diversion program. He got a sweetheart deal. He got a diversion program, and they said, you need to testify, and we'll give you immunity because we want this guy. We want a big fish. Okay. Is your, okay, so then he says, yeah, yeah, I told baby girl, don't tell anyone else that it's for Puff. Just, tell him it's for me. And so the government says, well, why? And then Paul says, well, because his name is Brendan Paul, so they refer to him as Paul, his last name. So he says, Puff is high profile, so we used an alias. Did Mr. Combs use Cialis? For people who don't know what Cialis is a male enhancement. It's for men to enhance their experience in the bedroom. So a lot of men at a certain age experience impotence, and it allows them to enjoy bedroom activities. So that's what Mr. Combs was utilizing. And Mr. Paul says, yes, we put it on his nightstand. The government, your message to Love Red Phone, what does it mean? I call Puff Love. His red phone was personal. The business phone was yellow. What did he text you? Xans, which is probably meant Xanax, I'm assuming. How did you pay for drugs? Cash, from the Gucci bag or security, usually Fahim. Fa. The government, in this text, what is flowers? Marijuana. Did you also call it tree? Yes. Here, Fahim tells me I'll get back paid once Duke comes on shift. I still don't understand using your money, your own money, for when you work for someone. I've been doing what I do for so long, and I have been at like studios, and they have millions of dollars, and you'll be at a studio or you'll be somewhere, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, just write up a requisition form, and we'll pay you back. We'll just reimburse you." No, you won't. You guys have a whole company credit card. You guys have a whole travel doohickey. Just, get my information going on, and you just utilize the travel agency. Or you just, do that, and you guys just pay for it. Like, why am I reimbursing you? So, same here. Here we are with Sean Combs. He's walking around here telling people he's a billionaire, and he has all these employees and people working under him and everything. And yet you have this 19-year-old kid, and I'm very sympathetic for this kid. Like, I really, when I learned about Brendan Paul, I felt like he was my son because of his age. Like, I'm 42, and I so easily could be his mother. And I'm sure his mother and father are my age or somewhere in the park, somewhere in that area. They could be a lot older too, of course. But I'm just like flabbergasted by this. I'm like, isn't it bad enough that you are having this kid purchase drugs, but now you are having him buy things on his own? He's only making $75,000 a year, and he's living in LA. You know how expensive it is to live in LA? I'm not a drug user, dealer. I've never bought a drug in my life, but do you know how expensive drugs are? Drugs are expensive. What is happening? Like, this is just the entire case, and the way that you have to talk about this case is maniacal. It's maniacal to have conversations about drugs in the way in which I'm having a conversation about it now. It's maniacal, but to have conversations about trafficking the way that you have the conversations about trafficking, because these are not normal circumstances, is what I'm saying. And it is completely absurd that a person would live in this manner. Like, this is I am still just I am shook that this man was living like this. He'd have to be a drug addict, because there's no way that a sober person would live like this under any normal circumstances. It makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. Okay, I'm sorry. Moving on. Okay. It's just crazy to me. So they told him he'd get paid back once Fahim got back on the shift. Did Mr. Combs have you take drugs? Yes. Mr. Combs had me take drugs to test the 2C. So what is this? The king and I? So if you don't get, crazy enough, then the drug